Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today is the 3rd of March and I thought I should start my next reading vlog. So if you're interested, I uploaded 2 reading vlogs in February where you can see what I was reading then, and I'm gonna continue on now. I'm not quite sure whether I will be doing 2 vlogs this month as well, because my reading is really slow and I'm planning on reading a couple of books that are for different reading vlogs, but yeah, we'll just see. I will decide when the first half of the month is over whether I have enough material for this to be interesting. But I've already finished my first book, and that was The Obelisk by N K Jemisin. I had the goal to read this trilogy in February, which did not work because I didn't read a lot, but I love this book. I already loved the first one, loved the second one. I decided to give this one 5 stars as well, because even though people say that this one is not as great, I thought it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it, and I'm so happy that I'm reading these books. So I do a separate reading vlog for the trilogy, so I will not talk a lot about this here, but just know that this is the first book that I finished yesterday for March. So next I want to pick up 2 books. The first one is obviously The Stone Sky. I can't talk right now, I'm so sorry. I had a very stressful day at work and somehow my speaking ability is not working. But yeah, this is the 3rd book in the Broken Earth trilogy, and obviously I want to finish it off now. I'm so in love with these books, so I'm really intrigued to see what the finale does. And as I said, I will read this for the separate reading vlog, probably only update you when I'm done with it. But this is the thing that's exciting me so much. And then the book I will definitely start later today is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This is a book that I'm also very excited about. It is a book about a Korean character, but I think it spans multiple generations. And very intrigued by this. It's historical fiction. I always love historical fiction, especially this time of year. So I am glad to have this opportunity to learn more about Korea and some other Asian countries and their relationships. So I don't really know what to expect from this book, but I will definitely let you know how it goes. And I will start this book later today because I'm doing a buddy read with a friend, and she's already started, so I need to catch up. Apart from that, I'm also listening to an audiobook right now, and that is Cherish Farrah by Bethany Morrow. I have about 2 hours left now, so I'm almost done with it as well. And unfortunately, this book is not working for me. I'm still hopeful that the ending will be so good that I give it 3 stars, but honestly, this book is just so boring to me, and I feel the whole time like I don't get it. Maybe that's my fault and not the book's. That's totally possible, but for me personally, it is very boring and I have no idea what it's trying to do. All the stuff that happens seems super random, and I'm always waiting for something that would explain it. So as I said, if the ending is good, it might still get 3 stars from me. But right now it's not looking so great. And I'm so sad because I wanted to love this book, because I really liked the other 2 books by Bethany Morrow, A Song Below Water and A Chorus Rises. Those were fantastic. So I hoped that I would like this one as well, but it's just not happening, it seems. So yeah, that's what I'm reading right now. I will probably update you as soon as I finish the audiobook to let you know my final thoughts on it, and maybe a little bit more information if you haven't watched my previous vlogs where I explained what it's about. So yeah, that's how it's going, and I hope you are having a great time right now. Okay, it's one day later, the 4th of March, I think. And I just finished Cherish Farrah by Bethany Morrow. Now, this is a book that is supposed to be social horror, and it follows two girls, two teenage girls who are like very best friends, and they both are very rich. And one of these girls is a black girl who was adopted by white parents. The other one is a black girl living with her black parents. And we kind of see their dynamic. It's a little bit toxic, but we also see the parents and stuff like that. It didn't work for me. I decided to give it 2 stars. It's so sad. I really wanted to love this. I thought that, exploring this relationship would be so interesting, but the whole theme that is done at the end does not work for me. And I do not understand the motivation of the characters at all, like at no point in time. So yeah, I don't know. This was really random for me, and just like so many kind of repetitions. It felt like for a long time it was going absolutely nowhere. And then there's a hint, I think about 50% through the book maybe. And I was like, no, that's too easy. And also it doesn't make sense. So please let the ending be something different. But it's exactly that. It's exactly what you can guess. And yeah, I was just so hoping that it would do something different at the end and twist it on its head somehow. But the whole concept, I don't want to spoil it. I could do a little spoiler session here, but I don't think a lot of people have read this book already, so I don't think it makes a lot of sense. But the whole concept does not work in the way it is portrayed here, in my opinion. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm very disappointed and so sad because I wanted to love this book, but it didn't happen. Apart from that, I started reading Pachinko. I'm 70 some pages into this, and I think it's so intriguing. I absolutely loved the beginning. I read it while taking my bath yesterday, and I'm very intrigued and very happy to finally read this book. And yeah, so we basically follow a girl. I think she's called Sunja or Sunya. I never know how to pronounce these names when they're written in English. But she is a girl who lives on an island in the proximity to Busan in Korea. And she gets pregnant, but she's not married. And so she ends up marrying someone who offers to take her away and give her a life that she doesn't have to live in shame. So this is starting at around the 1930s, so historical fiction. And I think in the next part that I haven't finished yet, so it's still waiting for me, she will move to Japan with her future husband, and it will probably tackle the treatment of Korean people in Japan and the very strained relationship of Korea and Japan, South Korea that is. So yeah, I'm very intrigued to read this, and so far I'm really liking it. Oopsie. So today is the 7th of March, and yesterday I finished reading the first part of Pachinko, so I'm now about 160 pages into the book. So far I'm really enjoying it. In this one we follow multiple generations of Koreans, and the main character so far has been Suncha, as I said before, and we follow her as she moves to Japan to live there. This is during the time when Korea was colonized by Japan, and a lot of the Korean people tried to find a better life, better wages and stuff like that in Japan, but they were very much discriminated against. and lived in very poor conditions, and this is portrayed in the first part of this book. I thought it was very interesting. So this took mainly place in the 1930s, and the second book now will go more into the time of World War II and beyond that. So I think that a couple of very harrowing things are probably going to happen in that part. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I think what I like the most about this book so far is the main character of Suncha. She is very, very quiet when she has to be, and a very good wife. She wants to be a good girl, and I think yeah, she definitely wants that role for herself, but at the same time, she is very thrifty. She's also very persuasive. So when she has set her mind to something, she will get that done. And I really like the moments when her character shines and she tells people what she thinks and what's gonna happen, basically. So yeah, I think the portrayal of this main character is really, really good. I really enjoy reading about her. I also like the discussion on Christianity in this context. It's something I know nothing about, and usually I don't really enjoy reading about religion in that way. Her husband, Sunja's husband, is a pastor, so he is preaching. And yeah, I do have my problems with faith, so I'm not always enjoying that, but I think it is interesting to see it in this context, and yeah, just being one of the themes that is kind of explored here. So yeah, I very much enjoyed this so far, and I hope that I will continue to love it just as much. I've also started listening to a new audiobook, Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, but you probably guessed it, I will do a separate reading vlog for that, so I will probably not update you here too much. So far I have maybe listened to 1 hour or less, so I'm right at the beginning of the story, and so far I'm liking it. I like the writing style, and I'm intrigued to see where it goes. So today's the 12th of March, and I have finished the second part of Pachinko, so I'm now 2/3 of the way through. I'm still loving this book, but it's definitely giving me all the feels, so I wanted to talk a little bit about part 2, trying to keeping it spoiler free, but I think with this book it's much more about the how than the what, but yeah. In this second part, we span quite a few years again. I think it starts in the 30s and goes up until the early 60s. And because of that, we have a lot of time jumps in the second part. In the first part, there was also quite a large amount of time that was covered, but it focused very much on a certain time in that and was quite detailed in that. But the second part jumps around much more, and we basically fly through the wartime in Japan. So yeah, we start with the two children being very small before the war starts, and there's quite a few things going very wrong for this family, and it definitely covers the way that yeah, Japan just acted during the war. They were very much, yeah, just, I don't know how to describe it. They just basically got rid of everyone who was of a different opinion, who thought that the war wasn't a good idea, and that, yeah, that was dangerous for a lot of people, and that is something that we can see here in this book as well. And then we kind of jump from time to time, and I think that it does work in this book. I think the way it is done is quite good, but I still felt like I wanted to have the gaps filled in a little bit more. I'm just not someone who enjoys time jumps so much. And sometimes you would have a chapter that focuses on a certain conflict. For example, the women of this household deciding that they wanted to find work as well to support the family. And then you have this conflict and you see all the different sides and how they discuss this. But then the chapter ends and you have to read the next chapter to kind of see who won this conflict, whether the woman will start working or not. And that was kind of done well, but also sometimes a bit frustrating, because also like very big events would just be kind of jumped over. So there's, for example, one character death that I think is very important for the story, but we don't really see it happen. We see a little bit of the time before that, and then we jump into the future again and kind of see what happened a couple of years, I think, after that death. So yeah, I think it is a very unique way of telling the story, and it definitely feels different from the first part. But yeah, in general, it did work for me. There were just a few things that I wanted to be explored a little bit more, or wanted to see how these characters really deal with it in the moment and not like years after. And so we cover the war. There is some characters coming back to the story. There is some characters that are kind of new in this part and that become very important for the story. And we follow this family kind of surviving the war in the best way possible. Obviously, that was a very, very difficult time in Japan, especially for the Korean people. And then we see them settle into life after the war again, and yeah, just see what was the toll of the war, what happened to this family, and what will just stay with them for the rest of their lives, basically. And the one thing that really stands out in my mind right now, because I just read it, is the ending of part 2. And honestly, that was such a like frustrating reading experience, just because one of the characters has such a kind of, I don't know, tantrum. I can't really talk about it without spoiling it, but basically there's one character that we've been kind of rooting for the whole time, and who has the chance to really make something out of their lives. But yeah, then this character finds something out and reacts really badly to it, and it made me so angry yesterday. Like, I was so pissed I had to tell my partner all about it. And yeah, I thought that in this ending bit of this second part, the discussion of, I'm going to call it racism, because I think that is what it is very, very interesting. The way that the Japanese viewed the Koreans, and the way that some of these Korean children who had never been to Korea in their whole lives internalized that, and yeah, saw themselves as something less because they were Korean and trying to achieve Japaneseness and stuff like that. It was a very, very interesting discussion there, and I think, as I said, especially this internalization of the racism, and that combined with sexism is like really what pushed this conflict at the end of the second book. But it made me so angry. I wanted to slap that character so hard, like, oh. But I think it's just great if a book manages to really get you to feel these things, and this book does it beautifully. So yeah, that wasn't like the nicest experience of reading a book, but it is definitely very impactful, and I'm still enjoying this book a lot. Apart from that, I'm now about 40-ish% through my audiobook, Assassin's Apprentice. I'm really enjoying that one as well. I'm just at the point where shit is really hitting the fan, but I will do a separate vlog for that where I talk more about my experiences with that book. So yeah, I'm having a great time reading. The books I am reading are really good, and I hope that I can update you soon and let you know how the ending of Pachinko turned out for me. So today is the 16th of March and I think I will end this first part of the vlog here. Last night I finished Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. I gave it 5 stars. I think this book is amazing. It is very smart. It is very well written. I love the characters and yeah, it's just incredible what this book manages to do in quite a few pages, but still, this could also have been like a 3-book series, I think. So let me talk about the last third. So we follow the characters, I think, from the 60s up to 1989, where this book ends. And in this part, again, we have a lot of time jumps, so we do cover quite a few years, and we have these kind of like spotlight moments that we see with the characters we already know, and then we focus a little bit more at the kind of last year of this narrative. So again, that means that a couple of things that could have been explored more are not. So for example, we have more character death and some of them are just like one little tiny sentence and they're not really explored. So that was kind of sad, but again, this is quite a tiny book for what it is attempting to do. We definitely focus more on the children of Sunja. She is still in the story, but more in the background, which I thought was a little bit sad because she's one of my favorite fictional characters. She's so amazing. But I think through her children, you still see her influence, but also how her children are very, very different from her. And again, we have this portrayal of the racism that was, or maybe still is, part of Japan in their relationship to the Koreans. And in this last third, it deals more with suicide. So if you're sensitive to this topic, I would caution you. There is a lot of mention of suicide, and even though this is always very hard to read about, I think that it is done in a very interesting way, especially with one of the characters. I don't want to spoil it, but there is one character that commits suicide, and it is contrasted with another suicide that isn't really part of the story. It's just something we learn about. And at first I was a bit confused when we had that scene where we learned about that other suicide, because I was like, what's the purpose? Like, why is that in the story? Because it doesn't really concern any of our characters. But then the contrast really made sense when I started thinking about how that suicide of this character that wasn't really part of the story contrasted to one of the deaths that happened to one of these characters that we followed, and how it showed the way that one did take his own life because of the racism that he was faced with every day, and there was really no way out. The other character, however, did not commit suicide because this racism impacted him directly, but more because he himself had this idea that he was too good of a person to be Korean, and when he realized that he could never be Japanese, he took his own life. So this might be considered a mild spoiler. If you get into the book, you might be able to guess who I'm talking about. So I will probably mark this as a spoiler part in the chapters as well. But yeah, I thought that was a very interesting contrast. The person who has internalized all of this racism and adheres to this idea that if you're a good person, you must be of the what do you call that? The dominating race? I don't know. English is sometimes so hard. And if you're one of the people who face the racism, then you must be a bad person and you can never escape that. So that was an interesting perspective, and that was again contrasted with another character who was Japanese but still thought that they could never be a good person just because of things people said about them, but for very different reasons, for like more family background reasons. So yeah, as I said, this is a very, very smart book, and it explores a lot, and I think you could discuss this for hours and hours, which I will not do right now. But yeah, I would highly recommend it. I think the trailer for the TV show also looks amazing. I don't have Apple TV, so I'm not quite sure whether I will be able to watch it somewhere. But yeah, this is definitely a book to pick up if you haven't already. So I think that would be all for this vlog. I am also halfway through my audiobook Assassin's Apprentice right now, and I'm really loving that one as well, but there will be the separate vlog where you can find out all about that. So I hope you enjoyed this. Leave a like or nice comment if you did, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!